Hey everybody, this is Theoretical Bullshit once again. It is late and I'm trying to be quiet because I have house guests and and I don't want to be loud and wake anybody up. But, this is a response to Ambassador 1022. Thank you for responding to my video, Intelligence, Courage, and Morality, and I'm going to try to respond to yours. You had three major issues with mine, which were the three keywords that I used: intelligence, courage, and morality. And you said that God is all of those things, whereas I would say that it would be impossible for God to be those things. And it does, I think, come down to a matter of definition for some, and I think the problem lies elsewhere for other examples, but we'll get to that. I do want to preface again with the fact that my original post was not meant to be an argument for or against the existence of God. I was just saying that if you do adhere to the idea of a morally perfect, omniscient, and omnipotent creator of the universe, you would logically be forced to conclude also that that creator cannot be intelligent, courageous, or moral. So anyway, intelligence. Let's talk about that. You said that I gave a poor definition of intelligence because I used the word new and different conclusions, and you gave an example of students at MIT who might be taking an exam, and even though they're figuring out, the problems to very advanced mathematical questions, they're not coming to new and different conclusions. They're coming to conclusions that people have already figured out before. Well, that's where I think the misunderstanding lies. When I say new and different conclusions, I mean, in our minds, we're coming to new and different conclusions than conclusions we've ever made before. It's just on a personal basis. If I didn't know that 2 and 2 is 4, but I figured it out on my own without looking it up in a book or having somebody tell me, if I figured that out on my own using logic and reason and mathematical or arithmetic application, that would be me exercising intelligence. If I looked it up in a book or I had that answer available to me without having to figure it out or deduce or induce, I'm not sure exactly that that's true, then I would not be exercising intelligence. So it doesn't matter so much that anybody has figured out the answer to something before. Intelligence is just about coming to a conclusion using what you do know and arriving at something you might not have known before. So it has nothing to do with whether people in general have figured that same answer out before. That's not what I'm talking about. Anyway, though, you said that your definition, or at least the dictionary's definition for intelligence, is the capacity for learning, reasoning, and understanding. Right off the bat, though, if you take a God who is omniscient, who knows everything that can possibly be known from any point of view, during any time, any place, anywhere, in any context, how exactly does that God have a capacity for learning? Right, you can't. That God cannot learn. It would be impossible for that God to learn, because to learn means that he didn't know something beforehand, and if he didn't know something beforehand, then he wasn't omniscient. So you've contradicted yourself. You gave an example of a basement of 1,000 encyclopedias with, infinite knowledge in those encyclopedias, and you would have to be incredibly intelligent in order to apply that knowledge. And you said God has to be infinitely intelligent to apply his infinite knowledge. I think that argument comes from a vast underestimation of what it means to be omniscient, what it means to have infinite knowledge. If you know everything that there is to be known from every point of view and every angle, from every time period, in any perspective, in any context, you can't apply your knowledge. Why would you need to apply it? Apply it to what? Come to a new conclusion? You already know that conclusion before you started, so there was no need for an application of the knowledge you already had. You know your next thought. You know what you're going to do next. You know what you're going to do after that, and after that, and after that. You know the conclusion before you even start, and you know every step along the way. You cannot, with infinite knowledge, exercise any kind of thought process. You cannot exercise intelligence or figure something out or learn or come to a new conclusion. You just can't do it. It doesn't apply. It's impossible. If God, for example, were to sit down and take that MIT quiz, God would know all the answers before he even started the test, and it would be it would be interesting to see God try and reason his way through a math problem when he knows every answer along the way. If you know the conclusion before you even start, again, there's no opportunity to figure something out. There's no opportunity to exercise intelligence. It's like basically somebody might as well have just handed him the test with the answers already written down, and he can hand it right back. So that's why I say, I'm not saying if God were a man, he wouldn't be intelligent. I'm not saying this. I'm not saying any of those things. I'm saying it would be impossible for God to be intelligent. That's all. Okay, then you went on to dispute my argument that, an all-powerful, infinitely perfect God couldn't exercise courage. And your problem with that, you didn't so much have, you didn't point out like flaws in my logic or my reasoning. You didn't really so much have like a syllogistic problem with my argument. It was more you just had a problem with the fact that I didn't include Jesus, or that I was dismissing Jesus, and you seemed very frustrated by that. Well, I want to say that I wasn't. I'm not saying we can't talk about it, and I wasn't saying that it doesn't count, or that I don't think I'm not going to acknowledge that is a big part of Christian doctrine. No, I was just saying that that's not what I was talking about. When I say that God cannot be courageous, I'm talking about God. I wasn't talking about Jesus. Now, what you and I both believe in Jesus existing. I believe he existed as a historical figure, and I believe that he suffered just as much as you believe he suffered. I don't believe that he was divine or the Son of God, but I still believe he was an incredibly influential political and historical figure, and I would agree with that. That said, I want to point out that even though I didn't discuss it, don't you think that you were kind of proving my point a little bit? When you say that, if I say God can't be courageous but men can, and the whole point of my video is that, all these things that we respect and admire in human beings, God can't do or doesn't do, and then you come along and say, no, it's not true, God was courageous because God turned into a man. That's my point. In order for God to even be able to exercise courage according to Christian doctrine, or to experience suffering according to Christian doctrine, God had to become his creation. God had to become man. He had to become one of us. Because a God who's all-powerful and perfect and flawless and invulnerable can't be courageous. But we can. We can do it. God can't. And so in order for God to exercise that virtue, he had to become one of us. And I just think that's really interesting that you're pretty much validating the point that I was making all along. Okay, then you went on to talk about morality, and you said, this is the stickiest one of all, but you said, just because God is the perfect moral example doesn't mean that he isn't moral. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if you believe that morality, all morality is by definition God's nature, if God is the arbiter of what right and wrong is, if all right and wrong means is right is what God's nature is, and wrong is against God's nature, or wrong is contrary to God's nature, then God is stuck. He's not moral, he's not immoral, he's completely amoral. There's absolutely no opportunity for God to exercise morality, in that morality becomes completely and utterly meaningless for God. That's like somebody going up to me and going, Scott, I want you to try to do an impression of yourself. Oh, that's a fantastic impression. How did you do that? You're doing that so flawless, the way you did that impression. I mean, you even looked like you, and you did that, you had brown eyes. It was fantastic the way you did that. That must have taken so much skill. I should bow to you and honor you and respect you for the talent you displayed in doing that perfect impression of yourself. You looked just like you. It's as ridiculous as that. To say that God is moral doesn't mean anything. It's completely and utterly void of any applicable value in terms of saying something. So there you go. I'm not saying that God is immoral, or that we exercise morality better than God. I'm just saying, to make the statement that God is morally good, or that God can exercise any kind of morality whatsoever, is about as ridiculous as saying, isn't it impressive that each and every one of our feet are just long enough to reach the ground? It's silly. It's begging the question, and it's circular. So that's it. So those are all the points. I hope I responded adequately, and if you're up for another rebuttal, I'm totally into it. Otherwise, thanks for your post, and take care. Bye.